Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Catholic Truth Podcast. Bryan Mercier here, president of Catholic Truth, and I have shocking statistics for you that people have not told you before. People have been lying to us for so long, especially women. All of you women out there are being lied to. In fact, I bet you didn't know that literally 37% of women have a higher risk for breast cancer, up to 37% if you're on birth control, and up to 200% higher risk for cervical cancer just by being on birth control. Has any doctor ever told you that? Has anybody ever told you that? You have an 80% higher risk for cardiovascular problems, higher risk for autoimmune diseases, 200% higher suicide rate, like for people who have committed suicide, depression, and all these other things. I mean, the list is really, really long for all of the mental, physical, and psychological problems that happen to women because of birth control. If you understand the roots of birth control and how it was started, it was actually started as race prevention to keep lesser races at bay. And I mean, only the lesser races like blacks and Hispanics and indigenous type people, they were supposed to use birth control, whereas white, rich, and affluent people were supposed to populate to create Superman, as Margaret Sanger, founder of Planned Parenthood, said. But we'll come back to that. But I just want to say that this is the stuff that nobody talks about, literally. I mean, when was the last time your doctor told you that just by using birth control, it will affect your brain and your choice of a future soulmate? Literally, and not in a good way. It'll affect you so that you can't even choose a good partner for yourself. And so many women wonder, how did I get here? How did I end up with this? Why is my marriage miserable? And if you don't believe me, you think this is all madness from just Catholic propaganda, this has a lot of scientific backing behind it all. Okay, so this is like serious stuff. When the Catholic Church says contraception's wrong, it's not just like, oh, it's bad. Like it actually hurts and destroys many women. In fact, the Depo-Provera, we were just talking about this before the show. We have 15-year-old, 16-year-old girls walking around with 80-year-old bones being broken because it destroys you. They experiment on women in third world countries who are disposable, and many of them die because they experiment with these birth controls over there before giving it to us over here. Has anyone ever told you that? I mean, this is scary. This is psychotic. And this is the evil behind a lot of this. And so people are wondering, okay, that's really bad stuff. And I don't agree with any about it. But what do you want me to do? Have 47 kids? You know, like literally, I can't afford to have 10, 12, 15, 20 kids. No, we're not saying you have to, but there are better, healthier alternatives that will be better for your psyche, better for your body, better for your marriage, and better for the culture in general. There are so many problems that we couldn't even do 10 shows to cover all the problems with artificial contraception and birth control. But we're going to cover a little bit in this video because it's super important for you to know. And I want to introduce to you somebody who is an expert on these topics. Her name is Grace Emily Stark. Grace, I have to ask right away, is there any relation to Tony Stark?
No, and actually, the first time I got asked that, I wasn't familiar with the Avengers at all. And I thought, Tony, do I look Italian? And I just
Okay,
had no
people,
idea what the
no
reference was.
relation to Tony Stark.
Yeah, I
And I'm
have
sure most
since
people know
learned,
who.
yes, no, there is no relation to Iron Man.
But Grace is a wonderful, wonderful mom. She has a master's degree in bioethics and health policy. She has other degrees as well. She's written for countless magazines and publications. She's been nationally published. She lives in Texas with her husband and her 47 children. I mean, her 3 children. And she
Four.
just, she loves being a mother. But Grace, I want to welcome you to the show.
Thanks for having me, Brian. I'm really happy to be on with you today.
One thing that I really want to talk about, Grace, is the thing that nobody talks about. Contraception really hurts women. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, the Catholic Church could say, yes, it's intrinsically evil. It's always a sin, and people say, well, why is that?
yeah,
But what we really want them to know is that it actually hurts women on a practical level. It hurts
yeah.
families. It hurts, it hurts, it hurts our culture. It hurts just women across the board. Like maybe you could talk about some of the ways that birth control does hurt women and a lot of the lies that we're told.
We know that it's so bad for women's bodies. And it's bad for two reasons. It's bad for the negative side effects and the risks that come along with it. So, what you talked about, the increased risk for breast cancer, which is 100% a real thing. Don't let anybody dissuade you otherwise. Increased risk for cervical cancer, increased risk for mental health disorders. We increased risk for autoimmune disorders as well. We know for a fact that it has these individual risks and side effects for the women that take it. But it's also bad for what it stops the body from doing, which we don't talk about enough at all. And that is cycling. Women, young women, teen girls, women, basically for their entire reproductive life, need to have a healthy, regular cycle for optimum health. I can remember being a teenager and hearing those commercials on TV where they said, "Oh, did you know there's no medical reason you need to have a period? You don't need to have a period." These birth control commercials. And that is a bald-faced lie. I don't know how anyone ever was made to accept it, that something that our body naturally does is something it doesn't need to do. What other bodily function do we say that about? Right? We say it about nothing else. But for some reason, we were sold the lie and we bought it wholesale that as women, our bodies didn't need to cycle. And that's just not true. We need our cycles for proper bone development. We need it for proper immunological development, proper cardiovascular development. The ebb and flow of estrogen and progesterone that is responsible for a woman's cycle is responsible for so many aspects of her health. And when you shut that down with birth control, you're shutting down proper brain development in teens, for example, which is one of the reasons why we think, especially for teens, the depression and suicide risk on birth control just goes to the roof, even compared to adult women. So much worse for teens. Same thing with breast cancer. If you're not experiencing the ebb and flow of your cycle prior to having your first pregnancy, you're not actually laying down the right kind of breast tissue. Your breast tissue is not, and same thing with your cervical tissue, is not developing properly. And so that's why if you're taking birth control, especially before your very first pregnancy, so as a teen, as a young woman, your risk for breast cancer and cervical cancer is actually way, way higher, even than it is for women that get pregnant first and then start taking it. And that's because it's preventing your body from all these tissues from developing the way that they are supposed to. It shuts down not just your cycle, doesn't just take away your period, but it takes away so many other aspects of proper health and development for women and young girls especially, and nobody talks about that. That's another reason, that's another kind of societal outcome of widespread birth control use that we can point to, is just the dismal state of women's health. Like, we know nothing about women's bodies. PCOS, endometriosis, these are as common as diabetes. Like 10% of women have these issues, and the vast majority of doctors have absolutely no idea what to do about it. They don't know what causes it. They don't know how to fix it because they have the pill, and they'll put you on the pill and send you on your way because then you're out of their office. They get to check off their box that they prescribed birth control. And that's it, And so that, I believe, widespread use of birth control is directly responsible for the dismal state of women's health, why we still
Hmm.
don't take women seriously when they present with all sorts of
And these
different
things are
issues.
easily fixable too, most
Yeah,
of
with
them.
the right training and the right kind of doctor. Yes, absolutely. And so that's just another societal level ill of birth control. And that's something that a lot of women are waking up to, is like, I'm so sick of going to the doctor. And like you said earlier, like, my big toe hurts. Oh, okay, here's birth control. Like, there are so many memes about that on Instagram, all over social media, because that has been the reality for generations of women now. It's like, if you've got a woman coming in your office complaining about anything, put her on birth control and send her away, and she won't bug you anymore, until she comes back complaining about the side effects. And then you just put her on
Yeah,
something else.
literally.
And so, yeah, it definitely has set women's health back. And that's why, the church's prohibition against birth control worked in favor of Catholic doctors, because they had to actually do the work to learn about women's bodies and to learn about real solutions. And
And
so
we
that's
and they've taught
why,
us men about them too. Like as a husband
yep.
who practices
Mhm.
NFP, I know my wife's body well. I know her
Yeah.
cycle. I know how long it is. I know when it ovulates, when it doesn't. I know how, I can recognize the signs on the charts that say, oh, she might be getting sick or something might be off, or like women have been found to have diseases just by practicing NFP and charting
Yeah.
their charts, like
Yep.
stuff that
Cancer's a
nobody else would
thing.
have found
Yep.
and would have killed them. Like there's just we'll do a whole nother show on NFP, but like there's just so much that we could say on this.
Yeah.
And I at least ask people to look into it.
Yeah. And if
Um,
you're on birth control, you really have shut down this, we call it, this fifth vital sign of your health. You can't be tracking this very important sign of your health on birth control because you've shut it down. And that's a big lie that women have been sold, is that it regulates your cycle when really it just decimates your cycle. You don't have one anymore. And it's such an important marker of your health as a woman. I cannot stress that enough, that if you're not tracking your cycle, even if you're a single woman, we tell single women at Natural Womanhood, like, start charting your cycle now. It doesn't matter if you're abstinent. It doesn't matter if you're celibate. There are nuns who use fertility awareness and chart their cycles as a tool for their health. And they've been able to diagnose different, we have stories of like different like nuns, cloistered nuns using fertility awareness and it helping them track their cycles, and having them helping them diagnose different issues with their overall health, because it's a health tool primarily, like at its core, tracking your cycle, learning how to chart. And so, we tell young women, and we have a series of college campus clubs all over the United States, peer-led college groups, where women learn to chart together, young women on college campuses. We call it our cycle mindfulness clubs. And so we teach them things like, hey, did you know that it's okay to not be in the gym for an hour every day the week that you're on your period, that maybe you want to take it easy, and that's okay? Did you know that when you're around ovulation, you're going to feel a little bit more amorous, like your libido is going to be higher, and that's okay? Be aware of it so that you make good decisions. Maybe don't watch a movie on your bed in your dorm room with your boyfriend when you're around ovulation, because you might not be making the best decisions then.
nope.
And so we tell young women just what the reality is of having, of being an embodied woman, so that they can make good decisions in college for taking care of themselves, for all sorts of things, because it's a tool for their health and well-being.
And let me
And
just say that this is empowering women. What you're doing,
yes,
that is
yes,
truly empowering women.
yep, 100%. And it's so much more powerful, conducive to good health than just being put on birth control. Yeah, and we know that teen girls who are put on birth control have a much higher rate of STDs. They have a much higher rate of abortion, because we know it encourages sexual promiscuity. Like, you're not allowed to say that for some reason, but it's just true. Anybody who understands, like, just moral hazard, the concept of moral hazard, that when you remove barriers to bad behavior, people are more likely to engage in those bad behaviors. It just makes sense. All you have to have is like a rudimentary understanding of human behavior to see how divorcing sex from procreation has just proliferated out into all of these terrible societal effects, divorce, abortion, broken families, everything else. I mean, it's the root of so many things, and a lot of these problems,
The root
you
of
know,
homosexuality, the gay marriage, and all of this too. Like, if you don't need kids to be married, well, then why
right,
can't anybody be married? I mean, there's
exactly.
literally people don't understand how many ramifications this has posed.
Especially for college age women, is going to wreak havoc on your mental health. Um, it is going to make it, gosh, it does so many things that I could just go on and on. Women who are cognizant of their athleticism. So, women in college sports, they know that birth control makes it harder for you to put on muscle. It actually changes your body shape, your ability to put on muscle. It makes it harder for your body to take advantage of the good nutrition that you're eating. Women on birth control are notoriously deficient in some really important key vitamins. And so there's just like all these different ways that if you're a young college woman who's trying to stay fit and shape, maybe you're an athlete, being on birth control is gonna like wreck your goals in a lot of ways. Um, Even if you just want to, have a good time and in college and be healthy and happy, your birth control is going to actively be working against that by all the ways that it's affecting your brain. And like you mentioned earlier, even affecting who you're attracted to. We know that it does this. And I think that's something that blows a lot of women's minds when they hear this. And so we know that through some different studies that have been done that women are more attracted to less masculine men while on birth control. There's some different kind of like evolutionary psychology reasons behind that. Um, and we know that women are actually also more attracted to men that have a um, maybe more like immunologically similar profile. They do this through like smelling pheromones. It's called the t-shirt test, having women smell different pheromones. They found that women on birth control, so who aren't naturally cycling, are more attracted to men the smells from men who have an immune system that's more similar to theirs. And so there's some thinking that that might actually cause women these couples to have unhealthier children because the healthiest children come from women who mate with men who have dissimilar immune systems to theirs. And so there might be like far reaching implications just even beyond our own health, but like to the health of future generations by the fact that women are on birth control when they're selecting their mates, that they're on birth control and whatever that's doing to their health prior to having children. There's all sorts of kind of strange, weird research. You can go down the rabbit hole on that.
Even with
Um,
monkeys.
and yeah, and so it affects how men treat women too. They've found that men are, this is kind of a funny study. They went into strip clubs and they found that the strippers who were ovulating made more money than the strippers who were either on birth control or menstruating. So it changes how men are attracted to women and when men are attracted to women. It in some different studies with monkeys, the monkeys had no interest in the female monkeys that were on hormonal birth control. There's all sorts of
But as soon as you take them
strange.
off, they're immediately back at them.
Yes, yeah. So just a lot of really weird stuff. Obviously we're not monkeys, but who knows, right? Like what it's doing kind of on like an evolutionary level when we look at just sort of the different ways that it impacts how men and women relate to each other and how we choose who we're going to get married. There's a team member of mine at Natural Womanhood. Her name is Jackie Aguilar. She's our director of education. She tells this story about how when she and her husband were dating, she was just so attracted to him and they could not wait to get married. They're waiting until they were married to have sex. And they were so excited. And she decided to go on the pill like the month before they got married, because they knew they didn't want to have babies and they didn't know about any other alternative. Well, she talks about how by the time her wedding night came around and early on in her marriage, she had no desire for her husband anymore. And she had no idea why. It was bizarre, because she just talks about they were so in love and just like it was really hard for them to wait. They just couldn't wait to be together that way after they got married and to have this switch flip and to have absolutely no desire for her husband just blew her away. And eventually, several months into their marriage and fights happening because of this and different things, just not being in sync as a married couple, she started to wonder, is it the birth control? And she got off of it. And lo and behold, her desire for her husband came back. It's incredible all the different ways that these drugs are affecting women and how we feel not only about ourselves, but about our husbands, our boyfriends, everyone else in our lives. It can color so much of our lives as women. And it's just something that women are lied to about, because, you go to your doctor and you tell them things like this and they act like you're crazy. They just tell you, oh, birth control doesn't do that. That's not your birth control. What you need is an antidepressant now. And so that's how we end up with the 1-2 punch of women on birth control, antidepressants at these increasing levels. When how many of these women actually just needed to not be on birth control, and maybe they wouldn't feel so crazy to begin with. Obviously it's not necessarily the case for everybody, but I would hazard a guess, given what we know from some really high quality, huge population studies out of Denmark in particular, that a woman's risk, and particularly young women's risk, teen girls' risks of later being diagnosed with and given depression and given an antidepressant is significantly higher when you were first put on birth control. So some really direct correlations there. And again, it's impacting women's health. It's impacting their relationships so much that
And how does
it
it
just,
impact society?
yeah, I mean, you can see, right? Like from these relationships that are being impacted, how on a massive scale, if we have marriages to between women who were contracepting when they met their partner, they get off of birth control, they're not attracted to their partner anymore. They're wondering what's going on, thinking, oh, I married the wrong person. And that's perhaps why we see divorce rates are significantly higher amongst couples who are contracepting than they are amongst couples who are using NFP. That's a nuance, but that could definitely be a factor there. You
Yeah. And I've always heard that it's possible that they can ruin their fertility for life too, by being on some of these. Is that true? Can it make it harder to get
some of
pregnant, or is that a myth?
Yeah, and so it's hard. Fertility is such a tricky thing. There's so many different aspects to it. There are certain forms of birth control, like Depo-Provera, which you mentioned, that we do know for a fact can make it take longer and make it more difficult to get pregnant, because that one specifically atrophies the endometrium. So that's the lining of the uterus where an embryo implants after fertilization. And so Depo-Provera, especially with continued use, atrophies the endometrium. We know that. And so there are certain forms of birth control that do seem to take a harder hit on women's fertility than others. And then, there are some women who can get off the pill and they can get pregnant right away. So it can be very dependent on method. It can be dependent on how long you took it, how good your health was otherwise. So it's hard to answer that in a straightforward way. But the best thing is just to never do anything to turn your fertility off to begin with, and that's kind of the long and short of it, is just to get to women earlier, get to moms of teen daughters, which is something we do with our Period Genius program at Natural Womanhood, and let them know, like, you need to be teaching your daughter about protecting her health and fertility early on, so that she won't be encouraged to go on birth control ever, that she'll respect her body from the beginning and know how to care for her body and her cycle, so that you never even have to have a question later on, like, man, if I'm struggling to get pregnant, did I do this to myself with my birth control? Because I think that's a question a lot of women do ask themselves. And wouldn't it just be great if nobody ever had to wonder, if we just taught them how to take care of their bodies and their cycles from day one, and encourage them to get real help for issues? Because I want to acknowledge that a lot of women, perhaps especially Catholic women, who know I'm not supposed to use birth control for contraception, but I have these really heavy, painful periods. And so my doctor recommended it for me. And so that's why I'm on it. Where does this leave me? And that's a reality for a lot of women. So I want to acknowledge that. I do know that there are good, faithful Catholic women who are put on birth control, who don't intend to use it for contraception, but intend to use it for health reasons. Um, but the fact of the
And it's
matter
not a
is,
sin to be on it for health
no.
reasons only.
Mm-mm. But the fact of the matter is the birth control pill is not addressing the root causes of your cycle
Right.
issues at all. It's a band-aid at best. Yes, it might make your cycle less heavy. That's because it gets rid of your cycle. You're tricking your body 1 week every month with a sugar pill, and that's when you bleed. But it's not actually a true period because you're not ovulating. Birth control functions to stop your body from ovulating. And so you're not actually ovulating or menstruating on birth control. You're just kind of being tricked into thinking that you are and that you have a regular cycle, when in fact you don't have a cycle at all. And so that's why some women do experience some relief of things like heavier periods because you're not really having a period anymore.
And doctors like make so much money prescribing contraception. They just give it out like candy. They literally have one tool in their toolbox.
Yeah.
Oh, you have big periods, you have zits, your toe hurts. Here, take birth control. That's
Yeah.
literally their tool. Whereas doctors, actual real doctors, like Catholic doctors, fix
Hmm.
people. Like my
Yes.
wife used to have up to 99-day cycles. Her and then 60 and then 30. They were all over the place. She had
Wow.
stomach pains every night. She cried every night because and no doctor could figure out what was wrong with her. And then she went to a natural family planning doctor, fertility awareness doctor, and
Hmm.
within a few months he had her completely normalized without any drugs, without any pills, without medications. She had a completely fertile cycle. Now, we didn't have kids for the first 7 years of our marriage because we were trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with her. And
Yeah.
then that's when we met him. And through certain vitamins, boosting of progesterone, all natural stuff, he was able to fix her cycle, which is still fixed today. She doesn't take anything. And
Yeah.
it's like a normal 28 to 30-day cycle. So, I
Yeah.
just want to let people know out there that if they prescribe birth control for, for a lot of things, there are better, healthier alternatives out there for you.
Yep. There are doctors who are trained in something called natural procreative technology. It's often referred to as NAPRO technology. There are doctors trained in something called FEM. Neo fertility is another kind of flavor of this restorative reproductive medicine from a great practitioner in Dublin, Ireland, that more stateside doctors are getting trained in too. But basically, these are doctors who, they are actual doctors. Don't let anybody tell you that they're not. They're MDs, they're DOs. A lot of them are OBGYNs, board certified OBGYNs. Some are family
And they know
practice
more than
doctors.
most doctors on the
And they
subject.
know more, yeah, than most of their colleagues do about women's health because these are doctors
So
that
much
said,
more.
I don't only want to just have birth control to give to my patients. Like, I actually want to figure out what's wrong with them because I don't want to put my 16-year-old patient on birth control for a heavy period only to have her come back at age 28 after she's gotten married and now she can't get pregnant because we never dealt with the issue in the first place, right? What your cycle is telling you at age 16 can have a direct effect, a direct line you can see to your ability to get pregnant later on in your life. And so as a mom, listening with teen daughters, like, you are investing in your daughter's future fertility and your ability to have grandchildren someday by doing better by her than letting her doctor put her on birth control. I 100% will beat that drum all day long because women deserve better than birth control. They deserve it for their health and well-being when they're young, so that they can have proper bone health, brain, heart development, and everything else, but also so that you're protecting her ability to have babies someday, so that you can have grandkids someday. So there are doctors who practice this type of medicine. You can seek them out just Googling NAPRO doctor near me, FEM doctor near me, Neo doctor near me, restorative reproductive medicine doctor near me. There are more now
The
than there
doctor near
ever
me.
has been. Yeah. And so they're going to actually get to the root cause of what's going on with your cycle issues, with your infertility issues. If you're struggling with infertility and you're being led to think that IVF is the only way, that's my personal experience. I was told, I was steered towards IVF, but fortunately had a doctor who had this kind of training that I'm talking about, who said, nope, we're going to look at your charts, we're going to look at your cycle, we're going to get you healthy, we're going to boost your progesterone, we're going to do all these things. And I have 4 kids today because of that, because I had a doctor that had that kind of knowledge 10 years ago, who valued me enough as a woman, as his patient, to take the time to get me healthy instead of just saying, here's your pill,
Same
go
thing
on
with
your
my
merry
wife.
way.
She had eating disorders and she was anorexic, bulimic. And a doctor told her years ago when she was a teenager that if you don't start eating, I mean, you're destroying your cycle. You may never have children, he said. So maybe that led to a lot of her issues. But the fact is, you know, we couldn't have children. And then we saw this NFP doctor and he just fixed everything,
Yeah.
and naturally. And I just want to tell people it's not just for that. Like, these are the best people in the world to fix your polycystic ovarian syndrome, your endometriosis, other things that might be affecting your fertility. We have
Yep.
told people not to go to secular doctors for endo surgeries because they just hack you up. My next door neighbor couldn't even sit for a year because they destroyed her. They don't even know what they're doing half the time. And
No.
it's so sad to say, but these people are experts specifically for fertility and they have the best technology
Yeah.
and they will give you the best chances of getting pregnant. I have friends who were told by doctors they couldn't get pregnant and now they are, now
Yeah.
they have kids, and it's
Yep.
because these people are miracle workers. It's
Yeah.
not for every, not, we're not saying it's 100% successful, but
No.
it's the large majority of people they can help.
Yeah. And it's a much better bet than anything on offer on the
Yes.
secular side of things because they'll just want to do IUI, IVF, pump you up full of hormones. And I know you have another episode on IVF, so we won't get into all of that, but it's not actually going to treat the underlying cause. Again, it's just as much of a band-aid as birth control is for cycle issues, IVF for infertility. It's just a band-aid. It doesn't actually heal. We act like this is just something you can just do to a woman's body and it won't have any other effects. But fortunately, more and more women are waking up to the reality that that's not true, that they've basically been dropping an atom bomb on their bodies with the birth control pill, and they're quitting it in droves and they're looking for alternatives. And that's where we've seen just some really huge strides in women seeking out fertility awareness and natural family planning,
Yeah, I
and
have
just
whole
taking
books
charge of
that
their
by
health.
secular, non-religious people on fertility, basically
Yeah.
NFP, but from a secular point of view, they
Yep.
kind of treat it like contraception, which is what we're not supposed to do, but in a healthy way,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so it doesn't
Yep. And
destroy
it's
you.
it's all, it's all inroads. That's how I view it is it's better than birth control, right? It's better than birth control. And I think that it's a really powerful path to evangelization, even if someone is using it with kind of a contraceptive mentality. Um, I think that thoughtful people can't help but eventually ask, like, why didn't I know about this before? Why wasn't anybody doing this? Oh, wait, the Catholics were doing this? What else might they be right about? What else might I want to look into that I was told was crazy that actually turned out to be 100% right? So I just see in my work as a teacher of fertility awareness and an advocate for NFP and all these things that um, it's such a powerful tool for evangelization, for bringing people to the church, for bringing people back to the church, because this is the truth, I believe, that sets us free. That what Pope John Paul II did with the theology of the body in helping people to understand what it is to be an embodied soul, um, and how that affects how we relate to one another as men and women and how we relate to our children. I mean, I think it's absolutely the cure for so much of what ails our society. So I tell people I speak theology of the body all day long. I don't always use those terms, but anytime I'm teaching somebody about fertility awareness, natural family planning, I'm speaking the theology of the body to them. And it's a message that hearts are finally starting to soften towards and open up towards. And it's very encouraging.
But did you have anything else you wanted to close with?
I think, yeah, just continue to educate yourself about this. If you're listening and you've heard some things that sound just outrageous, that you've never heard before, we have nothing but evidence-based data to back up every single side effect and risk of hormonal birth control that I've mentioned today, and even more over at Natural Womanhood. And yeah, just know that this is not some woo-woo crazy fringe movement, that these are not conspiracy theories, and that it's becoming more and more okay to talk about these things. But we still have a long way to go. We still need to educate physicians better about these risks, about these side effects. There's a great organization called FACTS about fertility that is actually working to train physicians on fertility awareness, natural family planning, and restorative reproductive medicine. I always shout them out whenever I can because I think what they're doing is so important. We educate the patient, the consumer, and they educate the physician. So I see our work is going hand in hand. And yeah, just support the work of all the organizations that are doing all of this, because we are lone voices screaming into the void on a lot of it. We are suppressed on our YouTube channel, our Instagram channel. We get things taken down all the time. We are not backed by, it's funny, every now and then I get an email. Somehow people accuse us of being in the pocket of big pharma. I don't understand that. But we are completely donor
Literally
funded.
the opposite.
Yeah, literally the opposite. We're completely donor funded at Natural Womanhood. And we can't do this work, can't spread this truth and this knowledge and this empowerment without the help of our followers, readers, and listeners. And so I just want to thank you for having me on today, Bryan. It's been really great to talk to you. And I hope your listeners learned something today.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming on today. You're a wealth of information, and we could have talked for like 4 hours, and I kind of wanted to. There's just so much information that people don't know that can set them free, that we've been lied to about for so long. We've been brainwashed. We've been misled. We're said that we're crazy, because we don't accept it, when in fact, I mean, if people knew the shady foundations of this. It's just that Margaret Sanger said she had to find certain black people to get on board because black people would never buy this. So she had to have black people sell it to black people. I'm like if we told you the shady foundations, you would know in a second who's crazy. But because of just the misinformation, the brainwashing, this needs to get out there. Even if some people hear it, that's great. But we're going to get the truth out there that sets people free. And if you love what we do here, then please support us financially, especially at the end of the year here. People love to make big donations for tax reasons. Well, what better way to support an organization that saves souls and changes lives and speaks the truth? And that's not just us, but it's what they do at Natural Womanhood as well. So after you make a big donation there or here, switch and go make one at the other place as well.
Here.
Both need to be supporting. Lots of good Catholic organizations today need to be supported. Yep. And also, if you want to follow us, you can see our information below. You can see Grace's information below. And if you would like to see what they do, please visit their website. I would appreciate that. But thank you all for watching, and thank you all for tuning in. God bless. Pray for us, as we're always praying for you. Take care.